Remember that video I made a while ago? The 7 things I want to see and don't want to see in the Final Fantasy VII Remake? Back then, I was pretty excited about the remake. In fact, I thought it could be a really awesome game if done correctly. Since that video, I've uploaded over 300 hours of Final Fantasy VII content here on my YouTube channel. Meanwhile, Square Enix has been doing pretty much what every other company is doing right now and just following in the footsteps of whatever's popular, leaving us fans to suffer in the meantime. What's that? MMOs and time wasters are popular right now? Let's make a MMO-style RPG, slap Final Fantasy's name on it, put in some big boobs, and we're all set. Oh, and don't forget to sprinkle some mobile games on top, just for good measure. What's that? Pokemon and stacking things is popular? Well, let's make a stacking-style chibi game where you put a bunch of stuff on your heads because we're actually psychotic. What's that? Remasters are popular? Well, let's remaster one of the best RPGs of the past time, Secret of Mana. But let's not take any time to actually make it good. I remember back when Square used to be a company that would laugh in the face of its opposition. It would say, "Ha! You're doing what's popular? Well, forget that. We're going to continue our awesome series of Final Fantasy, a story-driven, turn-based RPG about the unlikeliest of heroes banding together to save the world." But now they're just a tragedy. And I get it. Maybe some of you out there really did enjoy the smoldering pile of ash that is Final Fantasy XV. Maybe time wasters and MMO-style RPGs are really your thing, and if that's the case, that's totally fine. But I think we can all agree that after so many years of Square making the same incredible type game with the same type of gameplay and at least the same general concept, that Square just decided to poop on all of us. They just decided to do exactly what they wanted to do. They weren't worried about the fans anymore. They wanted to do what Square Enix wanted to do, and what Square Enix wanted to do was make money. Whether it be with cup noodle advertisements, mobile games, endorsements with other companies, or just DLC out the rear end, what they wanted to do with Final Fantasy XV was to make money. And that leads me to the Final Fantasy VII Remake. It has been over 15 years since the first rumors of the Final Fantasy VII Remake surfaced. And since then, fans have been wondering, why doesn't Square just put down Final Fantasy XIII-7 Return of Anakin Skywalker and just make the remake already? And trust me, I was on the same boat. Okay, I was excited for any kind of news to surface about the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I knew that even if it didn't live up to the original, it would still be a pretty fun experience on its own. But ladies and gentlemen, my opinion has changed. I truthfully have very little desire to even see the remake made anymore, and I know I'll probably play it, and I'm sure I'll have opinions on it, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a negative experience for me. Even if the game were to come out tomorrow and it was a massive hit, it just doesn't make up for the years of torture and bad publicity over the whole thing. And I feel like I finally realize why the game hasn't come out yet. And of course, Square Enix has a bunch of different excuses, like, oh, it's a big massive project, and we're gonna have to split it into 4 separate games, and oh, we had to scrap the whole project when the PS4 came out, but I think the real reason is that Square Enix is making more money off of not releasing the game. I mean, just think about it. The announcement they made at E3 was obviously just a stunt to win E3 that year. And ever since then, they've been very careful to only let a little bit of info about the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I mean a very small amount of info, be released to the public. But they have been very happy releasing port after port after port after port after port after port of the original game, plus a ton of merchandise, plus Ultima Forks, plus wine, plus anything else they can think of to sell. They even have pre-orders of the game on Amazon. They don't even have box art for it yet. Are you kidding me? And I haven't even started with their announcement where they said the remake is going to exceed the original. Yeah. You still think this isn't some kind of publicity stunt? Here's the point with all this. We need to stop being so excited about the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Good or bad, it's going to be a mutant creation of the old trying to be mixed with the new, or rather, the original trying to be mixed with the present. So forget everything I said about the 7 things I wanted to see and didn't want to see in the Final Fantasy VII Remake, because honestly, none of that crap's going to happen. In fact, I'm just hoping the game is playable at this point. As long as it doesn't actually defecate on all of the fans that have followed Square up to this point, I will consider it a mild success. So having said that, here is my 7 things I want to see and don't want to see in the Final Fantasy VII Remake revamped. A release. Yeah, a release. That would be nice, before I'm dead. Maybe something like 2020 or something. I don't care. Hopefully Final Fantasy XVI hasn't killed me by then. characters. Yeah, remember those, Square Enix? You know, Cloud, Tifa, Barret. Yeah, why don't you throw those in? That'd be nice. Oh, I know who else you can throw in. Noctis. Yeah, Noctis. You already throw him into every other game you can get your hands on. Why not Final Fantasy VII? It'd be great. You could throw him into the Golden Saucer. You're wearing some stupid outfit like that DLC outfit you made. Put him in there. You go up to talk to him. You're like, hey, what's up? He's like, hey, you want to join my boy band? Then you turn around. Ignis is there. He's wearing a Moogle costume. He's cooking up Kate Sith for breakfast. You're like, yo, Ignis, why are you cooking up Kate Sith? He's like, that's it. I've come up with a new recipe. Vehicles. If you're gonna remake one of the RPGs from the golden era of RPGs, then you have to have something in the game that made those RPGs so great. And you know what made those RPGs great? Flying around the world map, exploring new areas, finding little secret areas on the world map. All of that was fantastic, and that's just gone from games nowadays. You remember this? Yeah, well, ever since Final Fantasy X, all we have is a stupid screen and a cursor on it. You pick where you want to go, scratch your crotch, press X, and you hear some stupid crap like, "Yee-haw! Here we go!" And by some miracle of the human mind, Square Enix actually thought that driving around for 10 minutes doing absolutely nothing somehow equates to the same feeling you get flying around a world map. Well, let me be completely obvious in telling you that this is not the same as this. Look, I'll even add the music. No, it's not the same. Music. Okay, this one's easy. You see, Final Fantasy X got a revamped soundtrack, but a lot of people didn't like it. They said that it sounded way too different from the original soundtrack. But you can go into the settings and change it back, so we're all good. Kingdom Hearts 2.5 got a revamped soundtrack, and a lot of people liked it, but the music wasn't that much different than the original, so that was all good as well. So here's what you do, Square Enix. Either A, make the music comparable to the original, or B, you give us the option to listen to the original music. I mean, I know it's a remake and not a remaster, but I guarantee a lot of people are going to be happy if you just shove that old soundtrack in there somewhere. Oh, and hey, you get some bonus points if you use the MIDI soundtrack like the Final Fantasy VIII Steam version did. Oh yeah, doesn't that make you want to buy 8 more ports of Final Fantasy VIII? No, really. They actually put a MIDI soundtrack in the Final Fantasy VIII Steam version. Like, that's all you can listen to, is the MIDI soundtrack. Somebody actually made a folder of all the old music that you can just download and then throw in the music folder in the Steam files, and it works. You're telling me Square Enix couldn't have just done that? The plot. I don't know, man. Like, I just had dreams of them actually putting the entire plot into the Final Fantasy VII Remake, but that was just silly. There's no way they actually get most of the plot in the game. In fact, I'll just be happy if they just get the main big plot points, you know? Sephiroth bad, Eris good, Cloud confused, Tifa quiet, Barret loud, Jenova alien. You know, the obvious stuff. Yeah, is this Square Enix? Yeah, I'd like to get a Hojo cackle and a wedge splat to go, please. Materia. You know? Materia was one of the greatest equipment systems ever put in a video game. In fact, I think that along with the crisp FMVs and the cerebral plot, it's one of the biggest reasons why Final Fantasy VII took off like it did. Now, I know this is a new game, so it's not like you can just throw in the Materia system and expect it to work. And why would you? You know, if I want to play a turn-based game with the Materia system, I'll just boot up Final Fantasy VII. I'm all for the remake being a new experience, but it would be cool if they had Materia in the game and that it worked kind of the same way it did in the original game. You know, like slots, leveling up, linking the Materia together, maybe bring back some of the favorites like Bahamut, Comet, Ultima, maybe even make some new ones like Arrow, Regalia Smash, Ultima Fork, Assassin's Creed. Cloud's personality. This is something that I've talked about a lot, and it still really irks me about the franchise and all the installments in the Final Fantasy universe. Cloud is not a depressed and whiny character. There are literally dozens of examples of Cloud cracking jokes, lifting other people's spirits, and overall being a charismatic and friendly guy. There are very few examples of Cloud actually being depressed, negative, or down on himself, and the only examples there are either A, directly after Cloud suffers extreme Mako poisoning, or B, directly after Aeris dies before he learns the truth about why she died. The writers of Advent Children wanted Cloud to be depressed over Aeris' death during the start of the movie in order for the main story of Aeris rescuing the children at the end of the movie make sense. But even then, they throw in Cloud's sense of humor in the middle of the movie to remind us what the true Cloud looks like. A likable and funny guy. But for some reason, memes of Cloud being a depressed character have exploded over the internet, usually comparing him to Vincent as if somehow their characters are similar. This is a gothic vampire who's destined to live forever without his true love. That is depression. This is not depression. Get it right! DLC. I think we're all tired of watching DLC ruin our favorite games, but DLC is so anti-Final Fantasy that it really does make me sad seeing it so popular in its newest installments. Final Fantasy is supposed to be a vast world that you explore, not one that you purchase. I'm all for adding DLC for more playability after a game is completed, but if they pull this, sell us half the game, and then sell us the rest of it for DLC later, it's really going to leave a sour taste in everyone's mouths. Plus, they've already said it's going to be more than one episode, so if every episode is full price, I guess we've already lost. And speaking of which... price tag. If the game is going to be more than one part, then for the love of God, take it easy on us and make it a reasonable price. I mean, maybe if you announced the game last summer and then just recently said, oh no, it's going to be more than one part, then I'd understand. But after 15 years of waiting, you can't do this to us. Multiplayer. Again, this is a game that was made back in the golden era of RPGs, back in the time of sitting in the dark in our pajamas exploring vast worlds on our giant CRT TVs. There is absolutely no reason to shove multiplayer into this game. If you want to fight people with Cloud, then just go play the new Dissidia game. Never mind, don't do that. Apparently it sucked. See, I don't even have enough time to talk about all the crap that Square Enix has screwed up since the last video, okay? Literally not enough time. You get the point. Fan service is okay, but you get the point. Easy super bosses. Let's just put it this way. I used to sit on the bus talking with my friends, formulating strategies about how to beat Emerald and Ruby Weapon, then we'd go home and get smashed by him again. It was so much fun to actually work together to defeat a giant adversary that we thought back then was literally impossible to beat. So case in point, don't do this. Oh, yep, there you go. I auto-killed him. What a fun experience. New plot points. It'll be a lot easier for Square Enix just to write a new script rather than trying to shoehorn the old script into the new game, but it'd be really nice for us Final Fantasy VII enthusiasts if they at least try to keep the main plot alone. Especially because if you go backwards, you run the risk of running into Crisis Core canon. And if you go forwards, then you risk running into Advent Children canon. And if you screw with Aeris' story, you risk running into my canon! Censorship. When the remake was announced, there was a lot of talk about censoring the wall market scene, and a lot of fans were mad because they felt like it took a lot out of the game not to keep the wall market scene in its entirety. Well, I have a better question. Why in the would you want to actually censor Final Fantasy VII at all? If Square Enix put any thought into it, they would realize that their target audience are people my age. People who have waited 15 years for this remake to come out. These people would love to see Sid and Barrett uncensored. The rough realities of Wall Market, down to the sleazy back alleys and the Honeybee Inn. I mean, if it's gonna be a remake, this is how you take advantage of those 4K graphics. Sure, Guard Scorpion would be nice, but give the people what they want. But no. Like I said, Square Enix doesn't care about any of this stuff anymore. All they care about is making money. Who cares about making a good game and making your fans happy when you can just appeal to all the kids of the world that don't even care about Final Fantasy VII? And sure, I know a lot of people of the younger generation who love these old Golden Age RPGs. But those kids would also love the remake that I'm talking about. They wouldn't want it dumbed down for their enjoyment. And this all goes back to that original decision to make the game an action RPG. Why would you want to appeal to action RPG fans? Is it really worth hurting your fan base just to appeal to a set number of kids who know nothing about Final Fantasy VII, but like action RPGs enough to purchase this game? I mean, what has happened to the gaming market where it's not about making good games anymore, it's about making profitable games? According to Game Informer, indie companies actually released more high-ranking games last year than AAA companies. So I'm still waiting for these AAA companies to realize that good games outlive the profitable games in the end. And Square used to be that company. When 3D platformers and fighting games were at an all-time high, Square was still making turn-based Final Fantasy games and still had the most dedicated fan base around. Those fans are still here, and we are still willing to purchase that outlier game. Are indie companies not enough proof that an off-meta game can succeed? I can understand wanting to try something new, not always being strapped in a chair, forced to make the same Final Fantasy game over and over. But you promised us this, Square. You said that you would sit in that chair one more time and make us a Final Fantasy VII Remake. So it's time. It's time to go back in time to 1997 and remember what good game companies are made of.